I want to sit here, to be honest.
Oh, bro, you can't. Trying to steal his spot.
Hey, there's some shit. Where's the... Hey. Can we get that in there? Start recording so I can tell everyone exactly how much of an outrage this is.
Well, welcome back to another episode, guys, of Talking Smack. I'm with your co-host as usual, Sam Bradford, and we've got another guest back today. He's been on an episode before. He's known as the Flat Earther. Jackson Airey. He's back on the show.
I knew it was coming back. I was waiting for it.
He's back on the show with us today. We're talking about some UFC stuff. We're going to get into a UFC kind of topic series thing, so we'll explain that a bit more at the end. So get ready and hope you guys enjoy.
I think fighting in general has just been something that humans have just been into for so long now. Like, you know, whether it be in wars, whether it be in anything like that. But when it comes to actual disciplined fighting, and fighting another human for that, back to the Olympics and
we can even date it back to cavemen when
you're actually 100% right. Yeah.
That's caveman days when there was no rules, mate. They were just fucking hitting each other with fucking clubs and fucking rocks, whatever they had.
That's 100%. Yeah, that was just pure survival. Or like who had the best stuff. I'm going to take it just by simples. There's no morals.
That's right.
It's just fight.
But back in the Olympics, used to have a style of wrestling / boxing and a bit of street fighting, basically. And
first part of MMA.
For years and years, it was very popular. People would come and watch during the Olympics, and then bang, one day there was this Roman emperor. He was like, bang, the Olympics is a pagan festival. Let's ban it. And then that style of fighting went down, and then you even date like gladiator days is kind of like a modern version. Well, not modern, but UFC is kind of like a modern day of gladiating because everyone's coming around to fight.
Yeah, 100%. For sure it is. Yeah, it's the whole thing about all the rich people or anybody that can pay for a ticket can come watch all these people get it on. It's just now the fighters get paid. Yeah. Then again, I think there is stories of like gladiators getting like paid pretty well as long as they're like.
Yeah, you should watch Spartacus. That's a great TV show where it kind of shows you maybe not highly true, not 100% true, but kind of accurate.
What it was like. But I suppose that, like, even then, everything, like, that wasn't just set in the one place. All around the world, we've had different spectacles of fighting and those kind of things. If you look to, places like Japan, you've got all your sumo wrestling and those kind of things. Yeah. Again, another spectacle where everyone gets together to watch a couple of people fight. It's what we've got there. Boxing, again, an international sport that everyone sees, everyone gets together for. You've got your taekwondos, your jiu-jitsus, your muay thais. It's the exact same thing all around the world. People have their own disciplines and those kind of things that they get into.
100%, yeah. It's kind of like the ones you just mentioned is like kind of like they call it like the Western versus Eastern like styles of fighting. So Western is like boxing and wrestling, and then Eastern's like the taekwondo, mixed martial arts, the jiu-jitsu, like the karate,
judo and stuff like that.
Stuff like that. And then you have in the early days, like Japan is a big one for like different types of martial arts. Like they do taekwondo, aikido, like karate. They did a bunch of stuff because I guess because samurais were very good warriors and like the start of like combat kind of, because it's always just single hand combat. So I guess they have to know how to like fight you without the sword. Just in case. I
can just picture samurais in their big like armor trying to fight each other with these judo throws and
stuff. Yeah,
because it would have been intense, man. It would have been intense being in full armor and getting chucked around. Well, it's pretty impressive for someone to be able to chuck someone in full armor around.
Yeah, that's right. You can't just punch someone in the scone if they're wearing a helmet. It's going to hurt your hand more than what everything else is. So
I think that's why they created things like judo. Judo is a great example because it's like your own body weight against you. So it's flipping someone over like your body.
It's using the opponent's body weight against them.
Yeah.
So that's why someone who could be quite small frame can be able to take on someone who's quite a large frame and be able to use their body weight against them.
Yeah. That's jiu-jitsu to like a T in a sense. It's like it's built off just being able to defeat a bigger person. Like you're always able to defend yourself.
I was just thinking, like, because there's multiple styles of MMA, so mixed martial arts, and fighting styles around the world.
Yeah.
But there wasn't actually any kind of proper tournaments or whatnot. So
No, nothing like that.
yeah, as you go.
That's right. Very rarely you would see a sumo wrestler fight a taekwondo expert.
No.
Very rarely you'd see a taekwondo expert fight a boxer. It just wasn't relevant. People didn't see that because it just wasn't something that was ever studied. So
100%.
there sort of goes in the form of mixed martial arts, and I suppose that's probably a good transition into where UFC sort of originated and how it started and what it was really for was the first actual real spectacle of all of these getting together and properly seeing, like what is the best form of discipline, what's the best martial art there is, and getting them all together in a big pay-per-view event. That's right. This is the one sort of way of doing it, and
you've got to get the money involved.
And I guess that's sort of where UFC one first
kicked off. Yeah,
that's right.
But like, I feel like even before that, because everything's in their own like realm. Like sumo wrestlers fight sumo wrestlers. They all have their own tournaments and stuff like that. Jiu-jitsu fighters, and then boxing came around, which has always been around. But that's where like prize fighting, I feel like, became a thing in like the early 20th century.
Yeah.
Like late 19th century. Like they started boxing and being like, oh, we can make money off this. Like the bigger and better it gets, all the way up to like Muhammad Ali kind of thing. Like, and then the trash talking started, and they're like, oh, now you can trash talk while doing this at the same time. Like, changes the game. Like,
that's right, to properly sell it as well. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want to market this and you want to make money from it, having people get excited about it is the best way to develop and gain traction on these kind of things.
I think the build up
100%.
as well for like a boxing fight. There's so much training and work before the actual fight begins. And then as they do like press conferences or whatnot, like not much back in the day, but but they used to basically have all this hype, all the media and press and people would be hyping whoever they preferred to win the fight.
Yep.
And then kind of, well, in the modern day now, they kind of do trash talking, and they kind of do like, because they know there's going to be an audience and people are going to be paying to watch people trash talk each other. And then there's such a big build up before the fight even begins, and then bang, the fight goes within sometimes 5 minutes to 15 minutes, but it's been like weeks to months building up to that fight.
Yeah.
So I think with the build up towards where UFC started was there were all these different styles of fighting and styles, and then started getting all this traction with, all right, maybe it'd be pretty cool to get these fighters to fight against each other.
And plus all disciplines think they're the best as well. Yeah. You can't. That's right. You can't say that there's going to be people that go in from the boxing world that think they are the best fighter in the world because they can stand up with any man and knock out any other man, and then you got the same thing. You got your judo experts that can throw whoever they want around just for the sake of throwing them around. They reckon they're the best fighters in the world. So I suppose there's only really one way to settle this.
Yeah, get all together in a cage and let's get naked and wrestle. That's what it's all about.
Lube ourselves up and let's go for it.
But I think you both can say, and like you guys are a bit more in the fighting scene, is that nothing was yet mainstream. No. It wasn't a mainstream event.
Except boxing. And even boxing had its own thing. It wasn't considered a martial arts like everything else was. Literally everything else. But boxers were like, nah, this is a pure sport. Like, which is fair in a sense of like it's very technical and it's one style, but a lot of them are like that. So it's like...
Oh, absolutely.
But you're right. There was no mainstream event. Nothing going on like that was getting everyone together to see.
That's where it kind of leads me to bring up the question of when did it kind of start becoming mainstream? And this is where I want to bring up the household name of the Gracie family.
Yeah, Gracie family, they're a big one.
So they actually originated from Scotland and made their way to Brazil.
Brazil, South America, 100%. To escape, like, Europe in a sense.
So that leads asking you two, like, the Gracies are definitely the foundation of the creation of the UFC, the ultra fighting competition.
They are 100%. They are the foundation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, in a sense. The Gracie family is huge for Jiu-Jitsu because Jiu-Jitsu originates in Japan. And then they took the Japan style of Jiu-Jitsu and made a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is BJJ, which is just a more intense attack style instead of just pure defense and whatever the chicks, and they added more moves to it.
I actually didn't know that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu means Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian
Until I started
BJJ.
looking into stuff before this episode. Because
Yep.
at the end of the day, you always hear Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I have heard the name Gracie before,
Yeah.
but I didn't realise they were a family of absolute fighting machines.
I mean, we'll quickly put a feeling. The family tree is like scattered crazily because like the original people have all passed on the generational talent of it. Like they just keep teaching the next generation and they just keep getting better, and better for like 100 years.
That's right. They essentially made it a lifelong camp, and if you are a part of the family, you are in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu camp. Like that is what you will study. That is what you will do, and you will be good at it. And they prove time and time again that they are the best, and that they are, and that's where they really wanted to prove themselves in that aspect. They said, righto, we again coming back, we are the best. And we want to prove it to you. So bring all your fighters. Let's get some people together. Yeah. And let's get all your disciplines together. And let's settle it once and for all. Yeah. We will prove. We will give you the Gracie challenge. If you
I was about to bring up the Gracie challenge.
That's right. Well, it's the Gracie challenge. If you guys can beat us in a fight, then then you know that then let's prove it. Like if you,
because they were like that.
That's right. And they were. You know, you see plenty of fighters nowadays like claim that they are the best, but you know, sometimes can't always back it up. But these guys at the time, when nobody else understood what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu actually was, everyone was underestimating what they could actually do.
Yeah, 100%. Because none of them look special in the sense they don't look huge, they don't look jacked. They just look like normal dudes. Yep. But they're super technical and they've perfected that craft of choking people out. So,
which I think also means that they had such a big reputation, but then a few of them didn't move to California, and that's prior to when the UFC started. That they had this kind of like garage, and they used to have like challenges and whatnot, and then this is when the kind of, I guess you could say, the build up towards UFC, because obviously
for sure,
Rorian Gracie, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Rorian, I think,
he was obviously one of the founders towards UFC.
Yeah.
So
because they get involved in that stuff heavily, man. Because of what you just said, the gym, like it was an old school style of inviting people into your gym to like come have a crack and see if you're better than us in a sense. And like the Gracies were known for just tapping everybody out.
Yeah.
And then Dana White was a boxer at the time. Other people were involved in different like side bits of like different sports of boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. And then a few of them did get together and were like, because the Gracies were super keen on doing tournament. They love tournaments. And then Dana White saw the potential in the business and he got with associates.
Yeah. So, a guy called Art Davey and Roaring Gracie, they were the two guys who kind of were the ones to, because Art Davey was more of an entrepreneur, while Roaring Gracie was obviously an elite jiu-jitsu fighter.
Jiu-jitsu practitioner,
Them jumping in together with a bunch of other names. I've got a few written here, but I won't really pronounce them because whatnot. But
Brazilian,
I think they're a mixture of businessmen, entrepreneurs, but
the hardest part about getting into the UFC department is pronouncing people's names. That's it.
Yes, it's difficult.
But it kind of leads me to say, like, so 1993 was the first tournament. Was the first, the UFC.
100%, yeah.
And you can even look back at their logo back then. It's quite a funny little old school logo. Yeah. So that kind of asks, kind of question for you, Zach, actually, is when this kind of 1993 started. So it's been 30-year anniversary. Like this year, 2023 is the 30-year anniversary of the UFC.
Yeah.
So
huge.
Over the 30
crazy,
years,
right?
It's evolved so much.
Yeah.
But I think the start of UFC is very interesting towards why it is where it is today, because back then there was no rules. There was only like kind of when we were talking about with like the Olympic fighters. Yeah. There was only 2 rules, basically no eye gouging and
no biting.
And no biting. They're like the 2 rules.
Well, those were the 2 rules. Yeah, legit. No biting, no eye gouging.
They were the 2 rules at UFC 1.
I think one of the other rules was no fish hooking.
Yep.
You can't fish hook someone's mouth, so you can't rip someone's mouth open or some shit.
That was the only thing.
Fish hooking. Yeah. Those were the couple of rules that were like just standard, like I think that was more just so it wasn't savages just literally tearing each other
apart.
apart.
Everything was open back then. It was you could kick him in the balls if you wanted to.
It was brutal.
Dog shots.
That's right.
Oh.
Like king hits, the good old fashioned 12 to 6 elbow. You could do quite literally
12 to 6 elbow.
That's right.
For those first few years, you literally could until the early 2000s is when it all like kickstarted in the sense of like they started unifying the rules. But these early days, they did everything. That's why the Gracies were good though, because the Gracies knew that jiu-jitsu was actually the best thing for like no matter what your style was. You can just pin people's arms, pin people in certain areas where they can't even pull your hair. They can't do certain things.
That's right, and that's another thing as well, is the fact that there's no weight divisions either.
So no weight
in the very first
sumo wrestlers.
Yeah, that's right. And when one of the very first fights, Hoist Gracie comes up against a sumo wrestler. Like here we are in a fight with someone that's nearly 50 kilos heavier than you, and you're just versing some scrawny little dude. You know where you're putting all your money on that bet. You're going, right, the dude that's fucking huge is absolutely going to kill this kid. But at the same time, that's something that the Gracie family really wanted to prove, was the fact that it doesn't matter what size you are. It doesn't matter the weight difference or anything like that. It is a technical style of fighting. It's a technical discipline, and 100%. And you can beat anyone solely using your technique. Yeah,
there was a lot of other tournaments happening that wasn't UFC. There was Pancrase tournaments. There was like old school fucking tournaments that they'll bring back. There was Pride in Japan. There was different tournaments.
Shoot fight?
Yeah, shoot fighting was another one, I think. Maybe. I actually don't really know that one. But there's so many different
types. That's what
types.
Ken Shamrock was.
Ken Shamrock was a shoot fighter. Makes so much sense because he's a big one. I've watched him have a few fights, and that is what his style is.
That's right. And that, again, he's one of the first people that came into it.
And he was crazy.
That's right. And
he got beat.
That's right. In only the semis, and plus it was a round thing as well. That's another big thing to. It's not only about that. It's also about the endurance. You have so many people fighting nowadays that, obviously there's rounds and they've got to last a certain period of time, but back then you were fighting four blokes at once. You were fighting four people in the night, and
there's no rounds, because it just went for 30 minutes.
It just went for 30 minutes. They just the time that was just like this all you have.
It was get knocked out or tap out or have your team throw in. And
they even had confusions. There's videos of like the ref being confused because like they're getting smashed, but he can't stop it. Because nothing's happening. He's not tapping, but he's not getting choked. He's not out. Clearly I can't stop this, but he's bleeding everywhere. This guy's smashing him. I should be able to stop this.
This is what makes me bring up the whole... When UFC first started, a bunch of states in America actually banned UFC getting fought in that state.
Yes.
And there was this senator called John McCain. He's a ex-veteran of the Vietnam War. Bit of
the game.
Yeah. But basically, he labelled UFC as human cockfighting.
Yeah.
And
which it is, but we love it.
Yeah. And then, end of the day, before it is where it is today with all this regulation, all these rules, and all these, like, basically permits for these fighters to be able to fight.
Yep.
There was no rules, like we were just naming before. And John McCain, he basically sent an email around and pensioned towards all the governors and stuff like that to start trying to ban it. But then what ended up happening is UFC kind of stood up and started implementing some rules like gloves and whatnot, and no dog shots, and implemented more rules. And then they added rounds, because fighting for 30 minutes straight is pretty full on.
Yeah. You're 100% right. For the early periods, from 1993 till 2000, it was very sparse. I think the first event was the only event for that year, like 1993. I think the next event wasn't till 1994.
They only initially planned on having one event as
well.
One event. It was only
supposed
to be a one-off thing, but just because of how successful it was and how... how people wanted to see it again because it was ruthless. It just hadn't been done before, and I think that was the thing that caused so much controversy within the government was the fact that there's no regulations. It is exactly right. Human cockfighting. It is just people beating the piss out of each other until one of them doesn't get up.
And we're paying for it.
That's right, and we're paying for it. So obviously when it comes to things like that, it's like anything. You can't just go out and assault somebody. You can't just go. You just can't go out and start fights with people without getting in trouble. There obviously has to be rules and regulations if you're going to start these things.
Well, I think it's helped grow it to where it is today because now it's become a bit more popular because there's going to be people who come from different, let's say, disciplined fighting styles who kind of a bit more about respect. Yeah. And yeah, if you get labelled as a human cockfighting thing, it kind of does bring a bit of a question mark around it.
It does,
that's
for sure.
right. You don't
it has to be
this is where
legitimised as a sport.
As we were speaking of Dana White, so 2001, this is when Dana White kind of jumped in and the two brothers that he was good friends with back in the day, and then they re-met in Vegas, and they were casino owners.
Casino owners. They owned either
What
chain of casinos or
what are the brothers?
Fertitta brothers. So I don't actually know the first guy's name. I think it's Jimmy Fertitta, but I don't know the other one's name. But Dana White was friends with both, but he knew one very personally. So he started it because he was already managing fighters at that point. He was managing Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. So they're two people that went on to be champions, two greats, two Hall of Famers. So he was already managing fighters, he was doing boxing stuff, he was doing other stuff, and then he was already doing this stuff with Roy and Gracie and doing the UFC tournaments. And then he thought to himself, this is a fucking great idea. Let's push this and make this like a business. They already brought the company for $2 million. Yeah. They already sold most of their assets. So at this point, they only had, I think, a warehouse.
So like Art Davey and all those other founding members sold it to Dana and
for
the two brothers.
Yeah, because it wasn't going well. The first few events weren't going well, but it's because they were doing they were doing them like once a year. Dana White was like, no, we need to make this more of a regular thing and promote it like boxing, in a sense. And that'll make us the money instead of just... Because the Gracies cared so much about honour that they didn't even really worry about the money-making part of it because they were in other tournaments. They just did that to prove that they were the best. So they put their top dog in there.
That's how you really know that they are there to fuck shit up. It's solely for the fact I'm just here to win. That's it.
They're just there to win.
You know when you're growing up that's right, you're growing up and you go to your zone 3 parties and your stuff like that and everyone's having fun, everyone's having pizza and there's just that one kid just sitting in the corner and he's ready to kill.
No one likes him. Your mum made you a fight.
That's
fight everybody up.
I think the Gracies just dead set the OGs of fucking UFC.
Of winning. You're like, 100%. Yeah, you're right. Like they are that's why they're put on like the Mount Rushmore. I think Royce Gracie, like one of the like big ones, is put on like the Mount Rushmore. Because
Hall of Famer, isn't he?
Yeah, just because of the fact of like, but Mount Rushmore is like your top 4 of like the sport, like of like a founding member in a sense, because of how much like he pushed for like the UFC in a sense and like that fighting.
Yeah.
But they were more about honour, so they didn't even care about that. So he brought it for $2 million with the Fertitta brothers because he didn't have the money to back him, so he did it through them.
So Dana White, he's a bit of a money man, isn't he?
Yeah,
he loves his money.
So then in the early 2000s, your stars that pop up is Tito Ortiz, who wins one of your first UFC titles, because then they start adding titles instead of just winning a tournament. They add titles for divisions. So you have your lightweight and your heavyweight division. This is early 2000s, late 90s. And then you have, as they add the weight classes, then they add the unified rules, and then they get it legalized in every single state, so they can start fighting in different states. And then so Dana White does all the smart moves to kind of make it a sport. Because you're right, he got so much controversy and UFC was kind of frowned upon. So they were like, I need to put this in the positive light of like, this is a sport, not cockfighting.
That's right. He always was, and being the smart marketing man that he was like, right, what are the types of audiences that I want to work towards? Who will get this? And at the time, reality TV show was just a massive thing. It was an icon, and he saw an opportunity there, and that's where he started Tough, the Ultimate Fighter.
Ultimate Fighter TV.
That's right.
And they teamed up with Fox.
Yeah. And they broadcasted on Spike, and they had this big like essentially a show where, just like every other reality TV show at the time, get a whole bunch of fighters into a house at once and have them battle them out to see who wins. So I'm fairly sure the first couple of coaches maybe were Chuck Liddell, I think was one of them.
I think he was.
And Randy
Couture.
Randy Couture was the other one, and essentially they've ran the same spectacle for so long. Was the coaches train the fighters up and and then at the very end of it have a super bout. And because it's something that went on for so long, it actually did gain some traction and some.
I think the first episode received 1 million viewers.
Yeah,
in the first episode.
Straight off the bat, which is huge, which is a massive, outreach to especially people that wouldn't generally pay for a pay-per-view event.
Because Spike, Spike, the TV, kind of TV broadcasting company, thing, they would show the Ultimate Fighter after the WWE.
That's right.
So there was already a massive wrestling fan, kind of
people that wanted to see
audience.
fighting.
Yeah, and then bang.
Or even
Ultimate Fighter came on, and the controversy of Ultimate Fighter, the drama with it, and even Dana White would come in and spark some bit of controversies and stuff like that to kind of get the blood boiling.
He loves stirring the pot.
Yeah, stirring the pot.
Because he'll come in and be like, these two guys don't like each other, like they're gonna get it on, get ready. And Dana White even says it himself. He couldn't have asked for a better, he couldn't have hoped for a better event because it's Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture, which are two fucking heavy hitters. They're gonna play it out at the end of all this. And then you have Forrest Griffin, who's the winner of one coach's team, and then Stephen Bonner, the other winner, and they go at it. That's what Dana White...
Arguably one of the greatest fights and really cemented UFC in history was that one fight.
Legit. It went the distance. So it went the whole 3 rounds, or they might have done... No, they did 3. So it went the whole 3 rounds, and these two boys just punched the shit out of each other for the whole time.
That's right. There was no straightaway knockouts. There was pretty much no groundwork whatsoever.
It was pouring out of faces.
It was your most pure street fight.
One of the most alpha fights you will ever see in your life is two blokes just continuously punching each other in the face. And that was exactly what people needed to see. And that's exactly what people needed to see.
Brutal, but...
And it sounds stupid. It sounds so dumb.
But then you've just watched the WWE, you see this, and then these two boys hug each other because they know what they've just done. And then Dana White's like, screw it. I'll give them both contracts. Like, I'm not giving just... Because the winner of this gets a UFC contract. And that's big.
And they get to fight.
And he was like, that's such a good fight, you both get it. Which is like, it's just such a positive vibe. And then even that, 2-3 weeks later, you get to watch fucking Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture, which ended up being a very good fight. So
Would you say from an overview point of view of the UFC, this is where it started becoming an actual global enterprise? Because they started getting contracts in different countries. Where it started to get mainstream.
Mainstream, not global yet.
That's right. People certainly had the grip and certainly knew what it was, but this is where it started to become mainstream. Is where they're now at a point where they've now got the traction of a larger audience, and they've obviously had the fights that they want to go see. So now they need to start driving the markets. They need to start having these big fighters, these big championship fights, and that's where they really started to drive. Was that sort of 2000 to 2005 sort of era where you get those people that are brilliant fighters that are there to defend the belts, that are up against up and comers, like the Tough really brought through some great fighters, and I think
they do. You're right. Nate Diaz is part of that. Diego Sanchez,
Anderson Silva. What about him?
Yeah, I mean, but from Tough.
Tough. Sorry.
See, Nate Diaz. These boys are from Tough, so they've become staple points in the UFC. So it did become huge, and you're right.
And that's where it started to get traction. From other things. Is there was fighters coming from other competitions that would finish their contracts with whoever they were with previously, and would then go, okay, now the single biggest sporting event, the biggest fighting event in the world is UFC. Let's start going into the UFC. That's where you pick up your Anderson Silvas, and then those.
So name's. When I was growing up, I just remember Anderson Silva because didn't the UFC used to be on a Thursday night?
I think maybe because that's the thing.
Sunday.
It wasn't a regular
in Australia time.
Yeah, until 2006, 2007, it was not a regular weekend event thing. That's when it started becoming every week. It was not a once in a blue moon, but it was like once every 2 months kind of thing. So it could have been on a Thursday, it could have been on Friday. They did it on
That's right.
I think they might have done UFC Thursdays.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're right. That they started transitioning into an actual not global yet, but they were actually transitioning into the top competition for mixed martial arts. Because during those early 2000 years, once they got to 2005, then they were like, we're the top dogs. They brought out Pride. They brought out a bunch of...
they brought out...
They brought out everybody, which then, when you buy out a company like that, you take on their signed fighters. So then you get Rampage Jackson, if you've heard of him.
Yup.
Knockout artist.
That's
like,
right.
You get fighters like that. You get Vitor Belfort
Australian.
signed on, who's a juice head who will knock people out. Like, so you get people who are super entertaining and are challenging these old heads.
Not to mention, they're also people that don't have to prove themselves either. Like, you've even seen, you know, your classic YouTube fighters, Kimbo Slice coming into it.
They try shit.
George Masvidal and those kind of things. Like, you know, we've got so many fighters that come on once you buy those brands, and they're people that don't have to prove themselves but speculate high.
Yeah.
So automatically, people haven't seen them on the UFC before. People haven't seen these, but they know that they're ruthless fighters. So now all of a sudden, because UFC's now got them under their contract, they're obviously going to pay to see the greatest fighters come together.
Yeah, which is like the biggest part of it. It's, now what they originally started the event as, the best fighters in the world coming together, they actually eventually got there. Of like actually getting people that are like, oh, we're going to the UFC because I'm the best fighter. Like, that's where the best fighters go. That's where I'm going to go and win and become the best. Like,
so Dana White being the president, he's a man who you can say has led the whole thing. And from what I've heard and have read and looked into, is that he's quite, well, cutthroat in a way. He was quite
yeah, for sure.
Had him on contracts, but end of the day, he was the one racking in the money. And you could also say that he's also led to where it is in 2023 is because he's been so ruthless in a way. And he's put money into multiple areas, like with promotions, sponsors, and all this different style of attributes that make the UFC grow in like kind of like a mainstream global sphere.
Yeah,
you would say having kind of household names or kind of renowned fighters that from other tournaments and kind of all jammed into the one UFC has made it become obviously where it is now, I think, from my perspective.
No, for sure, yeah.
He's always, I think the thing is that everyone sort of portrays Dana White in a very money hungry sort of way, but he has always been so passionate about what he does. And I think that's the best part about Dana White is the fact that he knows what the fans want, which ultimately will generate them money, because if you're doing what the fans want, seeing these major fights, seeing these knockout artists have a crack, you know, everyone's going to come watch it. He's going to make more money, but at the same time, that's what he wants to see. And you'll see so often that in press conferences, in even tough when he goes in to talk to the housemates and stuff, he will say, We're here to entertain. Like at the end of the day, this is an entertainment service, and we're here to entertain the people, entertain the masses. And we want to give them what they want to see. They want to see finishes. They want to see people going in there and giving their all.
You're
that's
right.
Yeah. And he doesn't.
He legit does.
That's right. And that in itself is something that's cool to watch. I think that in itself is, and you know, he markets himself so well as being somebody that wants to see that.
Well, I think he's quite a standout character himself. He's a skinhead. He's
a
big fellow.
He's built a great personal image.
That's right. Calling 34-year-olds kids and stuff like that. Kids got it.
Yeah.
He is his own brand in a sense.
I did actually search up his net worth. So back in 2019, he was sitting at $500 million net worth, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. While you have some of these fighters that are putting themselves through bloody war in some of these fights.
Oh, you see some of them,
Getting their bodies absolutely pounded. And
that's right.
They're getting the concussions, they're having long-term injuries.
Yeah.
And then there's Dana White just sitting back, being the kind of the mediator, kind of stirring the pot and making all this money.
You're right. That's a huge part of where he's copping it a little bit. Like, Jake Paul attacks him on certain parts on purpose. Jake Paul?
Oh, Jake Paul's
but he knows his weaknesses in the sense of he knows what people attack him for. Fighter pay, fighter care, like stuff like that. And he knows to challenge him on that because that is what's brought up. Is like the money side of it. But Dana White, he's the goat of it. I don't know. He's transformed it into a thing. But
he truly has transformed it to where it is now.
Like what you just said before, 2019. How many mils?
500 mil. 500
mils. Do you know what? Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Wrap your head around that.
That transition though. From 2010, do you know what it is? It's 2015-16. It's Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor took that sport to a new level. And that's what it was all about for Dana. Dana saw that. Dana saw one person take off and he's like, oh, do you know how much money he made off the Floyd Mayweather fight? Like
Who, Dana White?
Dana White, just himself, Dana White. So do you know that the what the price was? 500 million. You guys half that. Conor McGregor and Floyd half that.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather is his own business manager. He owns the Money Mayweather team. Like,
TMT.
He gets the 250
Jackson
million.
Barker loved. I used to remember in high school.
Yeah, he loves TMT.
Yeah.
But Conor McGregor is signed to the UFC, which means no matter what in that promotion, he has to half what he gets with Dana White and the UFC.
That's right.
So half of 250 million goes straight to the UFC, which is straight in Dana White's pocket. Like,
Oh man, and he's
that's
giving that
one
to him.
fight.
Yeah, he's
That's
giving that
one
to
of
him.
Conor McGregor's fights.
That's right, and you've also got to remember that this was a massive thing for UFC too, because previously UFC only ever did UFC. They would never branch out to other things, and this was the first time that they'd ever.
First and only as well.
That's right, first and only time that they'd ever reached out and worked with another company for a fight.
Yeah.
So they'd never done boxing before. They'd always solely stuck to UFC and the MMA sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was the first time that they'd ever branched out, and look how much money he's made.
I have a question actually for you both. You both probably would definitely have the answer. How many fighters are part of the UFC contracts?
Oh, so they have like a roster of like probably 250 to 300 fighters, probably. Maybe a little bit less than that, maybe on more than 180 to 250 range. But they have about that many fighters on their roster. And then Dana White also owns the Contender Series, which is a new little thing they do, which is like...
We fight to get a contract, more or
Yeah,
less.
yeah. It's tough without the reality show.
Yeah, that's right.
You just do the fights.
He knows how to make money, Dana White.
Bro, he's doing slap... You know the slap stuff where they slap each other?
Yeah.
He's doing that now.
And that's right. That's right. And not to mention, he's just bought WWE.
Yeah,
He's just
that's
bought WWE.
That's the next step.
When we were growing up, WWE was
Huge.
the biggest spectacle you've ever seen in your
Come on,
life.
Kofi Kingston.
Even if we right, CM Punk, let's go.
The Undertaker.
Triple H.
Yeah, that's right. We could sit here and spit names all day. Like how even UFC fighters have transitioned over to WWE, and it'll be interesting now. Like you look at Ronda Rousey's, for instance, that have moved over to WWE, and they went to chase that bag. Will we now see Ronda Rousey make a return back to UFC now that she's on the cards? Will we now see I don't know, a 50-year-old Rey Mysterio come back and jump in the octagon? Like, these are the things that we get excited for, and that's again circling back to Dana White, just creating that hype and getting people really excited.
You know what the best thing I would ever say?
Yeah.
If the octagon had an appearance of a coffin coming out and the Undertaker came out.
That's right.
If they added both, if they did WWE style production with UFC fighting, it'd be
Unreal.
Just imagine
Unreal.
Francis Ngannou raising up like the Undertaker.
That's right.
He's just huge, and he's like,
Oh my god.
yeah,
That's right. Or just getting like I don't know, John Jones versus The Rock. Like let's
let's just get it. John Jones has to have both his hands tied behind his back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, unreal.
Alright, so now we
that-
can definitely say where we're at to and talking. You can definitely say that UFC is $1 billion enterprise, whatnot.
Huge.
It's global mainstream.
Now it's global,
Everyone knows it, and they even go and take the tournaments around to different parts of the world. Like start of the year in February, there was a UFC tournament in Perth, in Western Australia.
The first one back in Perth since like 6 years ago. Like maybe not that long, but like a few. They haven't done it since before COVID. So like
UFC 284 was the first event in Australia for I think it was 6 years, like a long time.
Robert Whittaker versus Adesanya, I think it was, wasn't it? Was it them the last one?
Yep.
Yeah. So they fought, and then COVID shut down a lot of things. I have a weird little theory about that though. I feel like COVID helped UFC grow globally. So I feel like it hurt them at first, but then because they couldn't do sanctioned fights in America, they had to go to Abu Dhabi. And Abu Dhabi is like Middle Eastern, and because they have easier what's it called? Moving countries, like visa. They have way easier visa laws. It allowed Russian fighters and different type of fighters to actually fight in Abu Dhabi because they're not allowed in America.
So they
as
want
easy.
tourists and tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they could do it there a lot easier. So Dana White figured that out during COVID. He's like, wait a second. All the Russian fighters have a tough time getting into America and staying there. But they get it.
You
It's
just go
easy.
somewhere else.
It's easy for them to do it in Abu Dhabi. So let's just host fights in Abu Dhabi. these rich billionaires don't care. They'll host it. They'll provide everything.
And that's right. They still want to see a fight.
Yeah.
They're still going to pay money for it.
I mean, they have lions living in the house. Don't they?
That's right.
But that's just my little theory of like, I feel like COVID helped grow it to that next level of like, now he's got Europe, Africa, like he's got the whole world. He's got everything. Now.
I also would argue that the people realised how brutal the sport was during COVID as well. Because I remember the times when it would quite literally be a couple of judges, 2 fighters in the cage, and maybe a few other cameramen around the stage.
You actually hear the hits.
And you would hear the hits. The amount of time and how viral those fights were during that COVID period, when there'd only be a couple of people in the entire arena. Yeah. When we're now packing out 10,000 people in a massive arena just watching the octagon, and just to see 6 people just sitting there watching 2 people bop on, but realizing how brutal the sport actually is without the spectacle of people shouting out, Islam's a wanker or something.
Something to boost it up.
That's right.
I have to bring this up. But the English Premier League in England soccer, when they had COVID and closed door games where there was no fans, it was just the coaches, the bench players, and the actual players on the field. You can actually hear what the players were saying, and the amount of shit that gets said and whatnot is crazy. Yeah, and the thing is, you have these players perform so much better when there aren't a crowd. So it could be related back to UFC, where some of these fighters perform so much better without a crowd.
Without a crowd. They do it without the big lights, without all the attention.
That's right. I mean, ultimately, you've got to think of it like any sport, really. If you're just practicing, if you're just training, if you're just just having a kick with the boys, even if it's like football or soccer or whatever, you're just having a kick with the boys, you're not so bad. But as soon as you got that pressure on you, and it's like going like home versus away games. If you're a home game, you've obviously got the supporters getting behind you, having a look. But then you travel away, all of a sudden you've got all these people like judging you and all of that. So, once you eliminate that element and you don't have those extra eyes looking at you, then all of a sudden you've got a real fight.
Wow. Yeah. I think the modern UFC fighters now in this era have thousands and millions of people watching them.
Yeah, so that's right.
It's growing. And this kind of leads me to a question of asking, who are the modern best fighters?
That actually is a good thing to start off, to say, because you're right.
Because I think if to start ending the episode,
of course,
is all right. Love to hear your boys' views. Who's both your top goats?
So we're going.
You can either start from 1993 all the way up to 2023.
I say we start from the start, and we'll work
our way through. Fire away, boys. I'll be keen to hear.
All right, cool. All
right. On the count of 3, we're saying the exact same name. 3, 2, 1. Chuck Liddell.
Go sack first. Name 4 or 5.
Chuck Liddell. No, I agree. You're right. Top 5. We'll go top 5 each. Yep. Chuck Liddell is up there.
That's right. Pound for pound, one of the greatest in the world. One of the most badass looking blokes. Yep. One of the That's right. That's ultimately what you've got to think of, is someone that's going to walk into the cage to do damage, and that's exactly what he did. He was a fighter. He could fight, and he was just good at what he did. Yeah. Good at what he did.
And he was a champion. I also have an early day period people.
Number 2?
Just before Chuck Liddell. So I should have got him first. Tank Abbott. Tank Abbott is your first street fighter UFC fighter. So he's in early 1995. He only had 6 or 7 fights, I think. But he was just a street fighter. So in the sense of he didn't have professional backgrounds. He just fought people on the street. He had a record of 50-6 on the street. So the UFC were like, fuck it. Like they did with what's her face? Who's the dark dude? What's his name?
Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo's fucking Slice.
Kimbo Slice.
Yeah. They did the same thing with him. They're like, all right, let's add a street fighter, and he got a few wins. He knocked it because he was just a knockout artist. Because he's just this big chunky dude who loved throwing hammers. But he was also pretty brutal. So he knocked this guy out once, and he's the guy went stiff. Sometimes you go stiff when you get knocked out, and he was doing this. He was going as he's walking away. He's going. He's like this guy, shit. And it's so brutal. It's fuck. But all right, and then you bring it to our new days. I'm giving it straight away. John Jones, love him. He's
been in sport.
A goat.
He's been in the sport. He has been surrounded with controversy with his use of drugs and
love the line, does he?
That's right. No, Yeah, I was about to say the whole USADA like coming into it and doing proper drug tests and those kind of things. He's had controversy on whether or not he's taking performance enhancers, but there is no denying that he is one of the greatest that there has ever been. Isn't
his family real renowned athletes as well?
Oh, for sure. He's all his older brothers. Yeah,
that's right. He's dominated.
NFL athletes.
That's right. That's right. He's
a good DNA.
He comes. That's right. He comes from a crazy athletic family. Just absolutely ruined the light heavyweight division. Like there was no one that could stop him. It didn't matter who he was up against. He would absolutely kill them, and he's just recently come out after a fairly long stint, like it's been a year or 2 years or something like that.
2 years.
Has finally come back to the octagon, fought in a division higher
heavyweight.
That's right, heavyweight, and a first round finish. Like you just can't. You can't deny that he is one of the greatest that there has ever been. He is,
if not the greatest. Like it's crazy. You're right. There's so much controversy amongst his PED, like his performance enhancing druggies, then like also other stuff, like he's got a lot of alcohol, like driving while intoxicated.
That's right.
Like abusing his partner and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff he's done.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know any of this.
But that leads us to our number 2.
It's got to be Conor McGregor, sure.
Now look, all right, I'm going it. All right, we're going Conor McGregor. I love him. I love Conor McGregor.
You can't say that it doesn't matter whether you're watching him inside the octagon or outside the octagon. The man is entertaining. He's one of the most quotable people ever. Like the amount
trash talking wise.
That's right. He can trash talk out the ass. I mean, you can't say that.
So quick witted. Like he hits you straight. If you hit him with something, he's just hitting you straight back.
That's right. He knows what he's talking about.
And it's like, what?
You've also got to remember that he's Irish and he brought it really to the international stage and really wanted people to
up Irish. I would Irish bloody me.
Same.
That's right. Go like up the Irish, and he was fully committed and fully supportive about that. He was also a double champion. You can't deny that holding 2 belts at the exact same time, beating everyone in both weight divisions is an impressive feat in itself.
What's his record?
Conor McGregor's, it's like 24-4, 24-6, 26-6, something along that line of like definitely way more wins than losses.
That's
like,
right. He has had his losses and
he's had a few losses recently.
That's right. And I mean, ultimately, it'll be exciting to watch him come back into the UFC. We're recording this prior to the Ultimate Fighter being him and Michael Chandler.
Yeah, huge.
Going, and I think that's the perfect. So he's finally making his debut back into the octagon after his fight with Floyd Mayweather.
He fought Donald Cerrone and he won. That was a few years ago, and then he fought Dustin Poirier twice. So he fought Dustin Poirier, he lost, and then he fought him again, and he snapped his leg in half. Literally in half. There's a video. I'll show a picture. Like, it is literally like, so that's his leg, and then it's kunk. That's his ankle.
It is totally gross. But you've got Conor McGregor with a snapped leg sitting there saying, "Your wife's in me DMs." I'm telling you right now, he's still shit talking. He's broke his leg. He's still shit talking. He knows it. He knows that he's a brilliant fighter, and he's ultimately going to come back into this now. And we've obviously seen, and it comes with a little bit more controversy, is the fact that he's put on so much size in such little time. Everyone's speculating that he's on steroids because he's been off for so long. Yeah. However, he has come back. He's looking strong. He's looking fit. Yeah. He can still guarantee that hype that's going to come behind it. And he's also coming up against Michael Chandler, who is just an absolute freak of nature, who hasn't had the hottest run of the last few fights he's been in. But in saying that, he's an entertainer. He loves to fight. He loves to stand up, and it's almost the perfect fight. Almost the dream fight of coming back for the UFC of Conor.
It is.
I would love to hear your boys' opinion, because I remember when Conor McGregor fought Khabib.
Yeah,
and Khabib jumped out of the octagon and started fighting.
Huge.
McGregor's coaches, his name.
That's right.
Dylan Dennis.
Dylan
Dennis is who he was after, and he's very good at jiu-jitsu. He's very good at jiu-jitsu, and he was who was like helping
McGregor with jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu fighting, wrestling fighting, like to take him so you can accept submissions, do that type of thing, like. So and Dylan Dennis is known for being kind of mouthy. Like he'll come after you as well. So he came after not just Khabib, but Khabib's like brother, his cousin and stuff, just as well as Conor did. Conor went crazy, obviously. He smashed the bus up and everything like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Khabib thinks about things way more differently than just the sport. So he couldn't just... Because he also couldn't believe... He's like... He tapped. He said in the interview, he's like, he tapped. He's like, he's not a real man. Like, he's like, he should have let me... He should have went to sleep. Like, like, I wanted to put him to sleep. I didn't want him to tap and have the ref save him. So he's like, I was pent up with anger.
He's a real good grappler. Well, what's Conor really good known for?
Striking and timing. So... Not just because striking is like pretty broad because there's a lot of strikers, but his thing is like timing and accuracy. It's just timing when you're going to punch and then he slips you kind of thing. He's very good at just slipping a punch and catching you and then catching you again. And Khabib is known as
the grappler,
the best wrestler of all time in a sense. Like apart from John Jones, I reckon Khabib is a very close number 2 for best wrestler of all time.
Yeah.
John Jones' body type gives him the advantage in the sense of people. That's why I think people put him as GOAT because he beats so many people because he is genetically gifted. Like, but then he adds that with just determination, pure skills, and aggressive like mindset because he does like little things where he's like not dirty, but he'll teep kick you. So he's put people out of careers before by kicking their knee there,
just the inside,
because then it makes you what's it called?
Hyperextend.
Hyperextend. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's put people out of careers almost, like, for that shit. Like, put him out of camp for months. Because he's in the fight, he'll hyperextend the knee. And he's so much longer that you can't do it to him. And then he does this thing where he put his hands out, which is another rule that's been banned. But I'll finish this off with just number 1, and then you quickly list yours, because I bet you had a couple of the same ones as me anyway.
Yep. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
We are...
And then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting to. Because then, number 1... You can either go GSP, Silva, like who's the actual best, but for my favourite in opinion is Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping is a UK fighter who fought with one eye for a long time.
That's right.
It's like...
Right. You've also man, that's such a good pick. That's such a good pick because ultimately he used to lie to the doctors.
He used to lie to the
doctors in order to get in the ring. Like that's how dedicated.
Well, so you can see out 2 eyes.
Yeah, he said he could see out.
He said they would give him tests like what's on the board and stuff, and he'd do little tricks because they don't think he's trying to pass it to fight. They think he's trying to pass to see if he can actually see. They just believe in what he says, and he lied a lot of the time, and stuff would happen where the doctor would leave the room and he'd quickly run up to them, read all sides of it, go back and sit down, and they'd come back in. He'd be like, "Yeah, I think that's a B." A C, and they're like, "Yeah, you're pretty good." And he's like, "Fuck yeah." He said it was surprisingly too easy to pass these tests. Like, and he fought a couple of fights with one eye because he lost his because of PED use, steroids use. Vitor Belfort was loaded up with steroids. And he fucked Michael Chandler up with one fight really bad. And he hit his orbital bone really bad. So he had to have like surgery and it just kept decreasing until he lost his eyesight. But he wouldn't tell anybody. So he kept fighting because he wanted to keep fighting. And he wanted to become...
He just had that
dog in him.
Like
he wanted to still...
That's right.
And he fought till he was well old, like, and he fought GSP in like a super fight and got knocked out and was still like too old, one-eyed, like he should not be fighting.
That's right, and he's now respected as one of the best commentators, and he like, you know, he
does his own podcast, like does like things right. Like he's one of my top favourite fighters of all time for sure. That's why he's my number 1 is because he's. When you listen to him speak, he's just got such a great like attitude to everything, and he's a dog, like in a sense of he's from the streets of England in a sense, but he's like doesn't seem like it. He's pretty well spoken. He's funny. He's awesome.
Bang on.
You quickly run through yours, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yep, perfect. I've got 3, and I'm just gonna quick fire them. I'm talking from someone from the streets. We've got to go Chael Sonnen for the first
the
one.
Gangster.
That's right, the gangster. Again, someone that can talk himself up in a press conference. Someone that can actually back it up in the ring. He's a fighter. He's keen as, and him and his rivalry between Wanderlei Silva. What has to be one of the greatest rivalries of all time. And everyone's seen the clip of him on Tough, both being coaches. Wicked. Great fight.
What do you know?
Yep.
What do you know?
Tough. That's right. Tough. Second up, quick fire. It has to be GSP. I mean, again,
George St. Pierre
is one of the
French Canadian.
That's right. One of the
Montreal.
greatest.
Yeah.
One of the greatest proper mixed martial artists that there is. He could grapple, he could fight, he could do it all. I'm gonna say it was the first Avengers film, fought Captain America. Fought Captain America in one of the first Avengers film, just as a total laugh. But
in the movie,
that's right. Like Captain America's like gallivanting around with his shield and knocking all these blokes out, and then puts away his shield to fight George St. Pierre, and it was just like one of those really cool moments. And that's one of the. Hold on. That's right.
If you weren't a UFC fan, you wouldn't even.
You wouldn't. It's just some bullshit.
That's right. You literally wouldn't know it, but that's got to be one of the coolest things for me is George St. Pierre and how ruthless he is fighting Captain America.
Yeah.
But my top fighter of all time has got to be Anderson Silva, the Spider.
Oh,
Anderson Silva, unreal. He doesn't stop. He was 17-1. I mean the guy really knew what he was doing. He was fast. He was quick. He could submit you. He could stand up and fight you. Again, one of those people that came into the UFC from being a champion in other divisions in other sports.
Yeah.
But came to the UFC and really showed everyone that he really is the best. And there's no denying that for me he is the greatest of all time. Yeah.
Very good.
I think you nailed that little rundown of.
Yeah, truly brilliant.
Zach smashed it too. So
no, of course.
That's
a very good top three, and that's a legit top three in the sense of not even just favourite fighters, but actually like top fighters.
That's right.
Yeah. They're considered goats, amongst their industry. So very fair. I like that list.
Perfect.
All right. Well, guys, this is bringing it to an end of this episode. I'm going to end this episode with just a little rundown of what our future UFC events will be. We're going to do weekly/fortnightly events. We're going to focus on doing the main UFC events. So UFC 289, for example. But fight nights will also mix in there. We'll keep you more up to date with exactly what the videos are going to be, but you'll probably just see it as it comes out as well. But that's just a little rundown. Don't want to spoil too much anyway, because like I said, you'll see it when the episode comes out. So that's all I really want to say about that. I also do want to thank Airey for coming here and helping.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. It's been good. It's been fun.
Helping make it awesome as usual.
Yep, that's right. And we're all here together on this flat Earth, and I feel like
no conspiracies this time.
We got a disclaimer on our last episode where we talked about flat Earth.
That's right. We have independent fact checkers just coming in to check all of these Talking Smack episodes, and it's always flagged whenever Airey's on.
And thanks to the co-host Ben Bradford for helping out as usual as well.
Pleasure.
We love doing this. Thank you guys. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.